Okay, this is my Seiko, what I call the inverse Pepsi Tuna Mod, and I'll explain that later. And this basically started off as an SKX 007, oh sorry, 009, the Pepsi dial, Pepsi bezel, red to blue, and the standard, dark blue SKX dial and all that, everything. And this is a mod, originally it was a mod from Uncle Seiko. And if you can imagine how an SKX 009 looks like, but just putting this shroud over it, and it's been custom modified to fit it. Parts are milled out, it's got drill lug holes. I have another video somewhere that shows how this thing is like underneath here. It's pretty impressive. And as I understand it, after asking Uncle Seiko, these are indeed the same thing as the TST mods from the Tiger in UK. Tells me that he sends his watch out there to get them modified and get them back like this, right? So I would have been happy with it, and this actually came with your choice of rubber straps that he offers, and I chose the tire tread one because it's pretty unique. I've seen too many waffles and maybe even tropic straps. And is there any other ones? Your basic Seiko, the one with the little ridges here, whatever, that you can get. And this was kind of nice and different. Looks good, kind of old school. So, but anyways, I wanted to do something more with it after looking at it, because for one thing, I didn't want it to get it mistaken for a, come on, where is it? Solar Pepsi. This is like a tuna style, and they have the plastic, or is it ceramic, shroud on the outside, but it would look very close to that, and I didn't want it to be mistaken for that. And so I went ahead and decided, okay, I'm going to hook this up into the tuna that I always wanted, that they don't make. And there's way more parts for SKXs than there are for actual tuna, so that's why I went with an SKX as a base to modify, get parts. And I got inspired from looking around, because I used to have let me go back a bit. I used to have an SVBN033, and that was pretty nice. It was the quartz version of it's an actual tuna, 300 meters, dive watch, Marine Master, and it had, basically like this, stainless steel insert. It was all black though, with, black filled and black dial, SVBN033, and but I always wanted a blue version of it, but they didn't have any with a steel bezel, except this patty version right here. You can see that. Let's see if I bring it up. Yeah, which was pretty cool, but it's a little bit more expensive, and I didn't, at first I really thought it was cool, but it has too much going on for me. Although it's neat to have these blue accents, the anodized blue crown, the screws on the side, the bezel, and it has the brush finish too, and even the shroud was brushed, which the SPBN is polished. I prefer brush finished if I can. But there's these mix of blues, this dark blue, and I believe the blue rubber strap is a different color. A little bit too much going on, and also I did not want the red accents like that. It just, for some reason on this, it seemed a bit much, especially with a red hand, so I never went with that. I just went with the basic SVBN033, and I sold it eventually, but I always wanted one back, and then I saw this mod, and I got it. I said, okay, this is basically an automatic version of a tuna, and it's actually slightly smaller, at I think 46 millimeters round. And it is round, even though you see these lugs, they don't go past the shroud, so it is basically a round, and it fits really well. And for about $500 for this mod, whereas the tunas themselves, quartz, easily run at least $1,000 and up. And if you get an automatic, like what do they have? Do they have a high beat and even a spring drive Tuna? Those could be even more expensive, you know, over $2,000 at least, and maybe even more. And they're quite big. I mean, even though they're still a round case, but I think they're at least 50 millimeters and up, maybe even 52 or something. And again, the thickness even gets even more. This is still about an SKX thickness, which is 13 millimeters, whereas the SPBN033 is at least 14 and a half, I think. And the automatic versions will be even more, like 16 or 17. So again, price, size, you get everything in this automatic too, in this, you know, basically an SKX mod to make it look like a Tuna. Why the hell not? But again, I wanted to make it my own, so let's go into the parts. Obviously I didn't do this case was, they polished out all the information out here, left it sterile. I guess you can engrave what you want, but I'm not going to mess with that. It's fine just leaving this this wave you know, logo there. But let's see, it's cool that it has drill lug holes, very easy to change straps because this thing is a strap monster. But what I ended up changing on here is the movement. Took out the 7S26 movement, went at hand winding and hacking, so I went for this NH36A, and I changed the day wheel to a black one that has Kanji in English, and I usually set on Kanji, and just it looks cool. I prefer that look. And at first I was wondering if I wanted to do contrasting or not. But how I came to this conclusion was based on the dial choice. And I looked around and I said, you know what, the Stargate dial always appealed to me. This, I forget the reference number. I'll have everything listed in the description. But the Stargate II dial that has this blue radiant color, and it's not glossy, and it's got a slight satin finish to it. Can't really tell, but that always appealed to me. I saw it on Average Bros review of the Ultimate Tuna Mod, Ultimate Pepsi SKX mod or something like that. That's actually from Artifice Works, and that's where I found out about that dial and how to use it in SKX. And so I said, all right, I'm going to get that. But they had that white frame around it, which I have to deal with later. I'll get to that in a moment, but that's how I got to this. I was imagining, well, what would I want for the day wheel? Because I do have to switch out the movement and get a new day wheel that's oriented to the movement for 4 o'clock crown. Otherwise it's offset. You don't have to mess with the date. And do I want to keep it all white? It'll probably work because these are light indices, but it's kind of long, so it's still going to look off. Or do I do it black, which generally most people choose a black on black look on there. And when you do that, it'll create a negative space, you know, because you have all the indices and it's empty. Look kind of empty there because there's nothing that punches out. So why not do it half and half? So that's how I came to this. This black day wheel will just kind of fade to more or less the dark dial color, and the white background of the day wheel will just, you know, from a distance it really looks like, you know, part of the size of these indices almost, right? So there is a bit of symmetry that's remained, and that's why I actually wanted to remove the frame around that window. It was printed or a decal or something. At first I was just going to cover it up with either something blue or gray, but ended up, it started to come off anyways as I was messing with it, so eventually I removed it, and this is actually what I wanted, just to have no window, so it looks clean from a distance. You don't have, because you just see this white frame floating around, and it's not as clean, and especially since it's a contrasting day wheel. It's kind of weird to frame something that isn't these aren't the same color. So I don't know. Overall, I think that worked out. So I did modify this Stargate II dial, and that's the other thing too. You can never get a blue dial for a tuna, a real tuna that is, you know. They're usually matte blue and kind of dark, and I like this radiant one, so that's why I also went with this. And what else did I do here? I need to, hang on a second. Okay, where was I? Let's see, the bezel is from, and the insert, stainless steel etched insert, is from Yobokies. This is a tuna bezel. It looks like the tuna style. And this bezel is just a typical Seiko style, but it's all stainless steel, which the tunas also have. But I didn't want to make it just black, and I wanted to keep the Pepsi theme. So, let me brighten this up a little bit. So I decided to go reverse. Why not? You know, it looks good with the Pepsi bezel that was from the SKX 009, but I wanted to do something special, so I like stainless steel more, especially with this diameter. It makes it look smaller because you're looking at the dial. It's what really makes the watch look a lot larger or smaller. So when you have the dial, the bezel that's dark, it extends the dial and it looks visually larger, which I didn't want. So that's why I kept stainless. But I wanted to still get some color in there, so I decided to fill it in with red paint. This is enamel paint, and this is some blue paint. This is dark blue and this is dark red. Because I didn't want it to be bright, but just enough to see and be kind of stealthy, but cool. And that's why it's kind of the reverse or the inverse of the Pepsi dial, where silver is in the inside and the blue and reds are on the outside. The inverse of that is silver on the outside and red fill and blue on the inside, so that's why it's called the inverse Pepsi. And it was cool with leaving the dial and handset. Actually, this is the original handset from the SKX. It's cool with leaving it this white or silver with the blue, but I feel I needed to add back that red accent somewhere on here to tie it all together. I didn't want to overdo it, have the red be too strong and dominating, because red's a strong color. So I'd say, you know what, why don't I just paint the tip of this red, you know? I like to keep that white and just the tip, and it's just where you can see, it's just enough where it intersects right over the loomed area of the indices. You can see that, right? Just where it overlaps. So that's good enough just to see it, and I think that's just gives it enough of that red accent to make it pop out. Lastly, this is yet another Yobokies brushed aluminum bezel insert with the markings. And what else did I do here? This Crystal Times double domed sapphire crystal. Same profile as the other, my Night King mod. This is just enough, you know. I don't like to do it too heavy. And this kind of matches the way the tunas are like. They have this bit of a dome to them anyways. And this time I went with a purple AR, as you can sort of see there. Pretty cool. Because I just wanted something different. I typically go with a blue AR, and why not purple? And it kind of matches because, you know, if you mix blue and red, you get purple, right? So, and it's got a nice effect. It's just something, a hint of color. It's unexpected. You can see there. And it works out pretty good. And that's basically it. Oh, and let's see. This crown is from a Seiko Samurai. I had some crown issues from before with this, and at least through my research I was able to figure out what works and what doesn't. And during that I figured out that a stock Seiko Samurai, at least a third generation, maybe even a second, would work. And I like it because otherwise the stock SKX crown, that's not, you know, it's plain, but it's coin edged, but it doesn't extend enough outside of this shroud. It's almost very flush, barely peeks out, and it's really hard to grip to turn out. So I needed something longer to get that grip. And a jumbo crown that I had from Dragon Shroud would have worked, but in the end, I like this because one is another stock SKX part, and I like the knurled finish. It gives it a real tool aspect to it. You know, have you ever seen like ratchets, hand tools and stuff like that, and even some sort of I think sight adjustments on like guns or something, they have like this kind of knurled finish. I always like that, and I thought that was kind of goes with this tool look. And I like the fact that it's pretty much basically all completely brushed for the most part. I've always preferred that over any high polish. Only high polish is good, it's just for like accent trims, you know, where there's maybe a beveled edge or something, just a little bit just to make it stick out. But for the most part, I don't really like high polish finishes, and that's basically it. I have these look great on a metal bracelet. So I used to have end mill from Strap Code, which is pretty nice, but I didn't want to go with the same one again. So, you know, for plain tool watch, I mean, it's maybe boring, but I have one from Watch Gecko, which is basically an oyster that's all brushed for this with a straight end link. So I just go right in, and it looks great. I've shown it on Facebook on the watch groups. So if you find me there, you probably would have seen this on the bracelet. It would have been like an oyster style, which looks great. I was going to originally do beads of rice, which would have given it an old school look too, and I might still do that maybe, but for now the oyster bracelet works. And the ends I can actually interchange to fit an SKX. So again, if I am selling this, and unfortunately this nice bracelet that goes with it will go too, I don't have an oyster option, so that's why I couldn't just swap it onto here like I usually would do from time to time. So I need a new link, or at least interchangeable one with a Watch Gecko, so that oyster bracelet that I have for this, for the straight, can be swapped out with an SKX end link, and I can use the oyster on this, which looks great. But this is about this much. So that's basically it. It works pretty good. It's kind of hard to show this up close, but trust me, a 46mm round or so. This is my 6 and I would say 7/8 wrist size. It's just between 7 and 6 3/4, and of course I knocked over the camera. Works fine. It just fits. No gap, and it's relatively flat. You can see here, and it's not as big as you might think. Really, a lot of Seikos were smaller than you would think, but yeah. That is my SKX mod. I'm going to show you this off too. The stock bezel was really stiff, so I changed it to this, and it was stiff for a while, and then I had set it, and I did some lubrication with some silicone lubricant, and after a while it actually loosened up, and it actually sounds pretty and feels really nice now. I don't know if you can hear this, but check this out. It's nice and dampened. Not a whole lot of play at all, but it's just smooth enough. It's got this tuck 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 tuck. You know, this it's like almost like it's damp. It's almost like cracking open a safe, a nice safe, like that. It sounds much better, and it feels better than the stock. So overall, this came together quite good. And again, the NH35A movement, pretty decent. Usually it runs slightly faster, which is fine, but I like to have it in a tighter tolerance. So this is no more than +2, maybe +4 seconds a day, which is what I usually hand regulate my watches to anyways, and it's actually pretty accurate. And of course the Seiko, all these are original Seiko parts, except for the Yobokies, but they got good lume anyway, so all this stuff lasts throughout the night too. Very, very legible, no problem. So this is my Seiko inverse Pepsi Tuna Mod. One more thing about this, the other inspiration I had after this, because I wasn't sure if I was going to do this bezel like this and this whole look, but what got me to do that was this here. It's an old Generation 1 Seiko Monster, and I think it's called the Blue Monster, mainly because of the blue dial, the bright blue dial. Let me see if I can turn this brightness down here. There we go, something like that. And this is a rare limited edition, and these cost quite a bit if you can even find one. I think they're close to $2,000. But you can see they paint in the inside, just very similar to what I did with my watch here. So, and this was after I had decided that, and I was like, when I saw this, I don't know, I forgot what I was doing the research on. I was like, well, you know what? That further solidifies. Maybe I should do it like this. Red and the inside in blue, kind of like that. This is way brighter, and that's why I toned down the reds and the blues and didn't have all the bright accents that they actually have inside here. But this is a pretty cool looking watch, and it takes a little bit, I guess, inspiration from that, even though it's afterthought. I was like, but this did justify me going this route more. Try to make it look something like that. Let's see if I can brighten this up so you can see my watch. Yeah. So, yeah. I just wanted to share that. That's where I got some of my inspiration from to kind of do this bezel and these colors like that. But it's my own twist on it. And actually going back to the Pepsi, not the Pepsi, the Patty tuna. I didn't realize this until afterwards, but you see, they have a contrasting date too on here, and I don't know too many Seikos that actually have that kind of look. Usually it's all, the day and date is usually all one color, as you can see right there. Let me try to brighten this up a little. But then the Patty tuna actually has the contrasting ones, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, I think that's what the look they're going for. If you can, let me see if I can get a better picture of it. And the best one is still this one. See, from a distance, kind of like this white bit here, kind of just fills in that marker a bit, makes it sort of look complete. That's why this black kind of disappears, and the day window part of it is in black. So from a distance, visually, it looks somewhat symmetrical. And that's kind of, this was also after the fact, but or before I found out about this. But then I thought about my own watch. Shoot, why is it getting so much darker? But anyways, it's getting late. Yeah, so from a distance it looks, visually, get that reflection out. I gotta turn it. Yeah, it looks kind of complete, all the way around. Anyways, these are some other things that I noticed I forgot to mention in the video earlier. Alright, thanks.